Hi, we're here to show you how to make the Birch Gnome Quilt Kit that we have on our wall back here. So we have found this designer named Lake Girl Quilts that does this great gnome quilt. She's got a number of them that we carry the patterns to, and this one is the birch. There's also a balsam that we've made, and we have a kit out of that's made almost exactly the same way. We have a kit made out of Free Spirit Tim Holtz fabric and Christmas, and it is
it's cool,
very, very cute.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
So we have made up the birch gnome because this tree block is a little more advanced, and it's because it is. Freeform.
It's all pieced.
It's all pieced.
It's not applique, it's all pieced.
But it is a freeform type thing that you make. And then we also wanted to show you how we made the gnome. So the first thing that we did for the gnome is you cut your blocks of a white and a color, and you sew them together, and then you use this template to cut it out with. And what we did was when we made this quilt, we had some left over, so what we decided to do was make a table runner out of it. So that's what we're going to make today out of this is the table runner, but kind of give you the exact same tutorial on how to make these. So the first thing you do is you sew like the piece of white and then the triangle that goes on the top.
It's not a triangle, it's a rectangle.
It's a rectangle?
First. Yeah.
Oh, right. Two rectangles that go on top of each other, and it's probably like this. That you sew them together, and then what you do after you get this sewn together is you come back with your template and you put it on top and then cut this out and then sew the bottom portion on here. And these we made it very scrappy where we used different hats and different bodies on almost all of them to give it a really fun look, like they didn't have matching hats and outfits. We also used some directional fabric like this thing that looks like scallops or shingles, and we made sure that we made it go down because we liked it that way better. So once you get your template A cut out, then you put template B on each side to make it into this square. So the great news was when we got finished with this quilt, we had enough fabric left over that we could make the table runner. So that's why we decided we'd make the table runner.
And the table runner is 3 gnomes and 2 trees.
Exactly, 3 gnomes and 2 trees. So it's a nice size table runner that actually measures about 56 across when it's all done, because this is about 45 across when it's all done, because it's about this much of the quilt.
Yeah.
So that's how you make. So then she came back and it gives you a circle template to make the nose.
Big nose.
And we made it out of a light pink color. So you put the nose on it, and then she went around and did a zigzag. No, you just did
a straight stitch.
A straight stitch around it.
Just like raw edge applique. You know,
okay.
If you wanted to do your blanket stitch around there, you could, but I didn't see the need to do that for this.
For this particular quilt, I'd have to agree. And we used steam seam on the back of it to get it to adhere down to the gnome. So that's the gnome block that we did, and we made 3 of those that we had extra. So the tricky block is the
tree.
The tree, and so we have in the kit we have given you a nice assortment of different looking fabrics to make the trees out of. But Paula's suggestion is the first thing you should do is get some scrap fabric to make the tree. So she's done that.
Anytime I'm going to try a new technique, rather than do it with the fabric that I bought for the quilt or the kit fabric, I went to my scrap box and just pulled some stuff out. And so this was the first tree that I made. And I don't...
You want to hang it? You want to put it up on here so we can talk about it? Here, put it up on here so we can talk about it.
And... and I'm glad I made a practice one because I don't like these branches so low. So I played with it a little bit, and then I made a second one. I like this one a lot better. So
So this one, the difference is you made the tree limbs higher, and you gave it more of a trunk at the bottom. Instead of this one, looks like the tree limbs are almost at the very bottom.
And she in her pattern, you could see she made some that are low, but she didn't make them this low. But every tree is different. Only God's perfect, right? So
right, that's exactly right.
If you want one like this, it's no big deal. But I liked it better, and in fact, when I was making mine for this quilt, I realized that I was making all of them like up top. So I went back, and I had like half of my blocks done. So I went back and made some where I lowered the branches. And I don't know if you can see that, but they're not all the way down here like my first one. So it's free mode. It's whatever you want.
And where these trees come together, it looks nicer if you do have them where they're kind of where some are higher and some are lower. When you're putting them right next to one another, you don't want the same, and you want to make sure that you're using different shades of beiges in there, so it doesn't look like this is all trees, but this kind of looks like a forest and what you'd see in a forest of trees being next to one another.
And I wanted to show you what the back of this looks like, because it is all pieced, and I kind of freaked out, but it's so much fun to make them. So I thought I would.
They are freeform. They're
exactly whatever you want, and like
improvisational.
On some of these, I made a lot of branches, and I realized, why am I causing myself so much work? So on some of the other ones, I didn't have quite as many branches.
Right.
But that's how much I enjoyed the process. So it's whatever you want to do, but it's actually, and her instructions that she gave in here are actually really good. So I'm sure you could, just by reading that, I was able to figure it out. But she gave you a little template like this, and this is just a sample. But the first thing you've got to do is take your rectangle here, and this is going to be, you've got two of these.
Put them on here.
Yes. And so this is going to be one side, and this is going to be the other side. And then you have your tree trunk that's right down the middle. I don't know if I've cut those out yet. That's it right there, yeah.
Right,
so this will be the tree trunk. But
this one tree trunk is not as even. It doesn't have to be as straight.
Now, and she tells you exactly how to cut that in the instructions, and that's super easy to follow. Okay. But then you've got to take and cut one at a time, and she has you line your fabric up like here and so far apart, just so you can see where you're going to be making your cuts, and just start making your cuts. So, and the thing that she wanted you to know is, you'll notice when a big branch that's going to come from the trunk going out is the wider stuff, and then the smaller branches are from the 1 inch thing. So this is cut at 1.5. And these are cut at 1 inch. So you can decide, and here I thought, well, they're both from the trunk, so I made them both wide. You could do whatever you want, but it's pretty, you start making your cuts, and you can do cuts just like she did.
So I see that you've made some. These are all the ones that are larger. They're the same size.
And here's the 1 inch ones that I have scraps.
So these are 1 inch ones that she has over here that are, so you have two different sizes that you cut.
And then you just start making cuts. The big trick is you want to try and keep, I want to show my first one. You want to try and stay as close, more towards the center. Because when you trim it up, and if you don't, the way that I could have corrected this, now that I've made 25 of these things, is you trim off your excess here to get the size that they want you, but you could always come in, like I could have on this one, I could have trimmed some off of this before I did the other trimming and whatnot, because it winds up.
If you decide that this piece is too big, you can trim it smaller if you wanted to. To before you sew the other side on, so that you didn't have to trim so far out and cut too much of the extra branches off.
So you've got to make all of your cuts first. So decide what cuts you want, okay? And you're going to cut them, and then lay them back in place, because it'll start to make sense. It's like building a puzzle. You'll sew these, you have, because in here, this line is going to become a 1 inch strip. So you'll sew your 1 inch strip from here to here, sew that together and press it. And then you sew this other piece, because that's a separate piece now because you sliced it, and sew that to it and press it out. And all you're doing is matching, and then you trim these up, and you trim it up with the way the piece is flowing. So, it's hard to explain without having one that's actually cut, but it's really pretty cool, especially when you look from the back side. So I sewed this together first, pressed it, and then I sewed this, and then I knew that I had, my angle was going here, so that's where I had to make that make that a straight
next
whatever.
cut.
And
so you only cut one cut at a time, or do you cut all of them at the same time?
You need to cut all the slices before you go.
Okay.
Because that's going to tell you how you put this thing together.
Okay, what if you mess up?
What if you mess up?
Did you find that you could mess up?
I could, because on one of them I thought, oh, I'll just do my top branches. All I had to do was unsew what I had sewn. I had sewn like these ones here, and I realized, oh, I need it in order to do my other stuff. I had to. So you really do need to make all of your cuts first,
okay,
and then piece it from there.
Okay.
So, but it's like you said. I mean, you've got your, all of these. They don't have to be the same width. If you need to make it more narrow to fit the parameters. But you really, by the time you get it all done, I mean, you're cutting off almost 2 inches from either side because of all the extra fabric you added in here. It gets bigger
and bigger
as you go. So
okay, so you could make your tree trunk slightly smaller before you sew the 2 sides to the tree trunk, because this is the last seam you make putting putting the block together is the tree trunk seam right in here. So you could adjust this tree trunk to be however you the size you want it to be.
Exactly. And like I said, read her instructions.
And you could also put less limbs. If you wanted less limbs in here, you could put less limbs in it also if you want to. So this is where, as long as it squares up to be the size of block you need, you can do whatever you want and whatever you feel like you want in this particular block, because it's very improvisational as long as it's the right side. I do like the fact that they're all pieced and not appliqued. When I first saw this block, I was like, oh, I am sure that thing is appliqued, and that's going to be a lot of applique. But once we got the pattern here and started reading it, and it was all pieced, I said, oh, this is a piece of cake. So we can do it easily, and I think that it'll be a lot of fun for people. I personally love improvisational piecing because I think it's so much fun to do.
And no matter, even if you cut your stuff, like if you put 2 together and cut them, I don't know that you would ever wind up with 2 trees that look exactly the same because of the process that you're using, and you're going to get off. Maybe you cut your angle a little different or whatever. So I think it would be very difficult to make 2 trees exactly the same.
Yep, I do too. All right, well, we hope this has helped. We're going to make a block. We're going to make the tree block and video it. So I hope that you will join us to check out how she makes the block for the tree. And happy sewing.